gotten an overwhelming response. So our plan is to take about 15 or 20 minutes each day and answer some of these questions. And we're just going to keep it kind of low key. We're not going to edit these videos, so whatever they are, what they are. And like I said, we try to do one a day, and eventually we'll get through the questions because we have a bunch. So okay, we'll get started. And thank you all for asking the questions. We really appreciate that. It helps us spread the word and helps you guys out. And thank you for all the business. Things have been pretty good here lately, and we appreciate all the business and all the interest for sure. So we'll get started here. Jeffrey Steadfast has a few questions, and kind of good introductory questions. He asked, what got me interested in building long rifles? I started it when I was probably in my, probably about 15 when I got interested. And I'm not, you think back, it's kind of hard to remember exactly how it happened, but my family was always interested in antiques, and we lived in old historic houses, and I always liked to build things, so that was kind of the background that allowed it to, building long rifles to work for me. And then my dad had bought an old gun that was made by a gunsmith that worked in the little town where we were from, so that was interesting, a half-stock Ohio rifle. And then my grandparents had an old CVA rifle kit that had belonged to my uncle that he never put together, so I decided that'd be fun to put together and shoot, so I did that, and kind of just started from there. We had the Foxfire series of books at home, so that was neat to look at all the gun making sections of that with Herschel House and Jim Chambers and a lot of those fellas, and so yeah, that's sort of how it got started. That's how I got started building long rifles. Then I went to college for engineering and worked as an engineer for a good number of years, and then I started building custom rifles full time, and it's been about the last 4 years that we've been offering these flintlock rifle kits and components. So that brings us to the next question: what made us decide to start a business building and selling long rifle kits? It sort of, just kind of happened naturally. I'd always had the idea that it would be a neat thing to do, and kind of the ways I had in mind to produce them would be different than the rifle kits that were offered today, and I thought they could be better, and it was a bit of a challenge thinking about that. And I met Catherine, which I'm sure many of you already know with your interactions with her on the phone, but Catherine and I met, and she has a very good business mind, and sort of the other half to the business, so we just decided to start it. We really didn't know what the interest would be. We didn't know how many kits we'd sell, but we just decided we'd kind of start, and it's just kind of take it off from there. It's just sort of like it just happens. It's the best way I can describe it. Okay, so did I have any experience building before starting the business? So yeah, I did. I built a lot of custom rifles, so that was real important to being able to run a good business and be able to make good kits. Know what a good rifle is. So yeah, that's real key. So the last question he asks is, are you planning to offer any new rifle or pistol kits? And so what are they? So yeah, we are going to offer some more kits. One thing we've been doing probably the last couple years is working very hard to kind of structure the business and shore things up a little bit so we can offer more products and everything work out real well. It would have been real easy just to continually add new products, but then I think that it wouldn't have been a good choice. So we just needed to kind of get ourselves in position so we can add more products. So he's asking what some of the new products might be, and we're basically paying attention to what customers are interested in. And we've had overwhelming requests for a Fowler of some kind, and there's been a good number of requests for pistols too, so we'll see. But probably the next one will be some kind of a fowling piece. It could be English, it could be made here in this country. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But we're excited about it, building a Fowler, and hopefully we'll get to work on it later this year, probably before the end of the year. So thanks for all the good questions there, Jeffrey. Okay, so another question. Bradley Jones asks, any plans to add some lefty rifles? So again, we've had lots of requests for left-handed rifles, and we are going to do at least one kit for left-handed rifles. Probably something that would be a very popular kit. I'm not exactly sure what it'll be. It might be a rifle that's in between our mountain rifle and our colonial rifle. It would have more of a Germanic style lock on it. So yeah, we're going to do left-handed, and we've had lots of requests, and we're not trying to neglect the left-handed people. We've just had to focus initially our efforts on what would give us the quickest return for our effort. So just trying to do what we can do. So thanks for the patience. So another question, what got me interested in flintlocks? And I think I already talked about that a little bit in the previous question, but I always liked to make things, even when I was little, and I liked history, and I grew up around history, so it just sort of fit, And they're neat because they are something that's artistic, but they're real functional too, and those sort of historical, functional, artistic things work real well for me, and I like them. They're fun. So he asks, the combination of modern technology and flintlocks is fascinating. Do you see yourself applying any of the modern approaches to the manufacturing of flintlocks? For example, 3D scans, parts of originals, 3D printing to make molds, etc. And yeah, that we do use some of those techniques that he was asking about. It's real important to our business, and taking advantage of modern technology is what has made our business possible. It's made it possible, and it's allowed us to make the really good products we think we do. So that's a huge part of our business. We're creating things that are recreations of things that were made in the 18th and 19th century, but we're using a lot of modern approaches to that without sacrificing any quality, and it's worked out real well for us. So thanks for the good questions, Bradley. Okay, so Craig asked about a Fowler kit, and yeah, we're going to do a Fowler kit. Like I said, maybe later this fall we'll have time to get working on it. The development of the kits takes quite a bit of time. We're very meticulous, so it's not an easy process. It might take 4, 5, 6 months of work to get a kit developed, and it's hard to do while we're still keeping up with all the other aspects of our business. But one thing that we've realized recently, and the questions that have been asked kind of underscores it as well, is the high level of interest in our products. We work real hard, and our business has been going well, but there's a lot of demand, and we're going to try to ask ourselves what we need to do with our business in order that we can make it grow as fast as possible, but as well as possible, and meet the demand that all your customers have, which it's a really good thing. It's not always easy to grow beyond a certain point, but we know it needs to be done, and we're going to be asking ourselves those questions. So thank you. So Thomas Verberg, he asks, what do you think the most significant things, at least one or two, that you did to improve the locks you're making? Okay, so making our own locks has been a big project for us. It's been time consuming, and we've chosen to make these locks in different methods than all the other modern commercial locks available are made. We wanted to make them better, to be perfectly honest, and we've succeeded in that. And we found in general that it's really important for us to try to control as much of the components and as much of a product as we can. Having to rely on other people has proven to be difficult. So we've tried to bring more stuff in-house, and that's sort of the direction we're heading. So with regard to that, what are the differences between our lock and other locks that we've used in the past, or other locks that are available? And the biggest difference is the precision in which they're put together. So we use CNC machines to make most of the components. The only components that aren't CNC machined are the cock and the frizzen and the top jaw. And even the frizzen has a lot of machining done on it with CNC machines. So the quality level of all the parts, precision, the repeatability of the parts, the interchangeability of the parts is huge. So that's very big. And then in addition to that is the design of the locks are every bit as important as the precision. And we've taken great pains in order to try to make them as historically correct as possible and aesthetically appealing as possible. So those are the two big areas that we've tried to improve. I'd like to also mention, while on the topic of locks, is that I've worked with Frank House on these locks a little bit, where he's offered some critique and help, and it's really appreciated having somebody that's spent a lot of time studying these locks and be able to discuss things and bounce ideas off of has been really, really important. So we're trying to just make a high quality of product as we can, and the results have been very good. Been a little challenging at times, but really, really good. So the lock projects, we're starting to get a good grasp on things, and they're going pretty well. So we still have refinements to make and things to do to our process as time goes on to improve our efficiency and things like that. But the lock projects are going pretty well right now. So thanks for the questions, Thomas. Okay, a little coffee here. Okay. So in case you're wondering, I'm answering these questions in no particular order too. So we'll get to all of them. It may take several days, but we'll get to all of them. But if you haven't seen your question answered yet, don't worry, we'll get to it here sometime. And if we don't get to it, remind me. Okay, so Larry Berger, he says, he's asking a question about engraving metal components. He wants to do it himself. He'd like to have a little understanding. He's not sure that he wants to do it himself. He'd like to have a little understanding. So the traditional method to engrave is to use a chisel, a graver, and that process involves either tapping the graver with a hammer to drive it through the metal, or pushing it with your hand. So you're basically removing a little sliver of material, a little metal, and that causes a shadow, creates a shadow, or fills with patina, or you can color the cut in order for it to have contrast with the rest of the material. Engraving can be a little tricky to learn. It takes a little practice, but the good news is that the engraving that was done on long rifles is not generally too complex. Some of it is rather simple, and with a little bit of practice and determination, you can do it. And you can practice a lot on scrap stuff. That's a great thing about engraving. You can practice on scrap stuff, and there's lots of resources online to learn about engraving. So if it's something you want to consider, I'd say go for it. So yeah. Okay. So James Meisner or Misner said he's getting ready to build our Southern Mountain Rifle, and he has no chisels. Can you recommend the first chisels I should buy to get started? So one good thing is that our kits don't require too many tools. That's a very good thing. Um, the first tools that I'd recommend would be a 1/4 inch chisel and probably an 1/8 inch chisel. You don't have to have the highest quality of tools that are still pretty good quality, but aren't top of the line, might be a good choice. Basically the difference would mean just a little more frequent sharpening. But if you'd have a 1/4 inch chisel and an 1/8 inch chisel, that would be very good. So, and actually we're having a little bit of a problem here. We got a power interruption in our shop, and I heard some of the CNC equipment stopped. So that's probably a good place to stop the video. We'll go out there and try to figure out what's going on and get the equipment started back up. So thank you everybody, appreciate it, and we'll keep on posting these each day, and keep sending the questions in. As long as you send the questions in, we'll keep going the videos. So okay, we'll see you.